Hi everybody, my name is Christian and today I'm going to do something a little new and I'm going to be reviewing as well at the end summarizing Star Wars Lost Stars. So at the beginning part I'm just going to give a quick rundown, nothing beyond what is in the Amazon description or the back of the book, and just give my review of it and whether or not it's worth you to read. And then I'm going to just go into some of the new canon aspects that are revealed in this book. So Lost Stars, it's written by Claudia Gray. She did a great job with it. Her next book is New Republic Bloodline, and by how great she did with this book, I'm definitely going to go ahead and read that one. She did a really good job. So it all begins with the formation of the Empire, and these two kids, and maybe they're like 8. Yeah, I think they're like 8. It puts them essentially 8 years older than Luke. They're a little older than him because they're already children when the Empire's first forming. So they're really just enamored with the whole idea of space and flying and ships, and they're just going to the celebration of their planets re-entering the Empire. So there are two factions on this planet. There's the first waivers, which are essentially people that were actually exiled on this planet a number of generations ago, and they're super honor driven and just more humble and poor, kind of scraping this kind of lifestyle, more kind of like the people on Tatooine that you see, like the Skywalkers. And then the second waivers are just wealthy families that came and they own more of the mineral rights and that kind of stuff. That kind of tension comes and goes here and throughout, but they're only on the planet for a certain amount of time. So, of course, the two characters are one's from the first waivers, one's from the second waivers. So there's that tension among their families, but they become friends, become pilots together, and they, of course, then go off and join the academy together. They both excel and do really well. They both join the Empire right around the time of New Hope, and they start to become disillusioned, learning some of the things that the Empire does, the most drastic of which is blowing up an entire planet, which is the planet of Alderaan, which they see. And it kind of shows how the rank and file didn't know why they were even going to this planet and how much of a surprise it was. They were essentially told to go to the shuttle bays and look outside, and then they blew up the planet. And as you would imagine, there were people in the Empire who were loyal, imperial people who were from Alderaan or had friends from Alderaan. What would happen? How could you justify that? You know, these rebels were being branded as terrorists and nothing but criminals, but what could possibly justify blowing up a planet where certainly some people were going to be innocent there? So it's a lot deeper than you would imagine, and it kind of fleshes out the people of the Empire who, in terms of the movies, are just dumb stormtroopers that are just cannon fodder and like random British sounding evil imperial officers, and so this really fleshes them out. So it takes in the universe of this vast soap opera, but it's down to a much smaller scale. It's just 2 of the trillions of citizens that make up the Galactic Empire. They're relatable, they're realistic dialogue. They bring in some of the more famous characters, but it doesn't shoehorn them in. They do a good job. The locations and the events, it's a little bit justifiable. One of them is stationed on Vader's ship. So Vader's ship would see a lot of the things between the blockade runner being 10-4 being captured to then transferring and witnessing the destruction of Alderaan and attack on Hoth. Like all these things, they get fit in by, some literary tricks, but they do a good job. And so I would recommend every Star Wars fan to read this book. It would be best if you read it before episode 7 because there's some aspects, including the early days of the New Republic after Endor, as well as the Battle of Jakku and how that goes. So ideally, try to read it before episode 7, but it's such a great book and it gives an interesting insight on the people of the Empire during the original trilogy that read it whenever you hear this. I was able to get it from the library. I'm going to go ahead and include an Amazon link just so you can go straight to it. Definitely pick it up. If you're still watching this video and you've seen my other Star Wars videos, you will not be disappointed, I promise. So now for more of the spoiler section. For those that don't read books, and those that don't have time, and you just want to know what interesting things of canon have been revealed in this book. I completely understand. And I already knew some of these things going into it. So we're going to go into a little bit of the spoiler section. We're not going to focus on the love story and will they, won't they, and all that kind of stuff because you don't care about two random people that you haven't read about. But I was talking about on the larger scale. So one thing that was really interesting that I mentioned before is right before the Death Star fires its laser on the Alderaan, the crew is ordered to the shuttle bays and just to file up and look outside. They don't know what's going to go on. And then suddenly the planet's destroyed. And in The Force Awakens, we see a lot of trailers where they have a bunch of troops all listening to a speech on the snowy planet, which may be the Star Killer base. But either way, you see them all gathered together watching someone and then all turning around. And then there's actually another footage in one of the international trailers, which I'm showing in the image here, of a giant red laser coming out from the foreground. So I'm thinking, just like they are establishing in Lost Stars, the Empire is showing off to its rank and file what they're capable of doing. Showing this fully operational base that has upgraded to a red laser rather than a green laser. I think they're firing this new Death Star Starkiller base. I think they're firing it for the first time at either a test or maybe a New Republic or a Rebel or a Resistance base, whatever it's called in this movie. So that's one thing that I think is hinting to what we will see in The Force Awakens. And during the Battle of Hoth, it's definitive. It's never really been established how many walkers were at the Battle of Hoth, so apparently it's 5, for those curious. And 3 of which were destroyed. 1 using their tow cables, 1 by Luke Skywalker cabling up and throwing an explosive into it, and then a 3rd killed by one of the main characters of this book by focusing his speeder bike's lasers at a weak spot in the leg joint, which he knew about because he had been in the Empire for so long. As you can see from the movies, it looks like it's a pretty clear defeat for the Rebels, but apparently from the perspective of the Empire, they lost way more troops and way more rebels got out and were able to retreat than they expected. They thought it was going to be over, that essentially the terrorists that blew up the Death Star were finally going to be wiped out, and it ended up getting botched for them. You see the lead up prior to the Battle of Endor. Just a little bit of information about the Mon Calamari cruiser Liberty, which is actually the first one blown up by the Death Star 2's laser. It's just one of those canon things. So this gives a little bit of what it's like on the Mon Calamari ships and how humid and warm it is, and how for the humans on board it's very frustrating, but that the Mon Calamari are nice and welcoming and all that kind of stuff. Battle of Endor goes pretty much as the movies have shown it. Right after the battle, they do rename themselves to the New Republic, and they're able to take control of most of the Outer Rim, which is pretty similar to how the old EU did it before it was wiped out. And a year after the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Jakku is brewing, and apparently seems to be like a large counterattack that the Empire is planning on doing, but it goes terribly wrong on them, and the New Republic ends up being victorious, with many of their few remaining Star Destroyers being destroyed, as well as a Super Star Destroyer, which you can actually see in Star Wars Battlefront, of the Star Destroyers and one Super Star Destroyer getting blown up all around you. So the iconic Star Destroyer that you see in the Force Awakens trailer is actually the one that is crashed intentionally when New Republic forces border. So it's definitely, it makes those connections there. So the book ends with the Empire falling back to the core worlds, but they are planning a counterattack, and the New Republic establishing themselves, already doing some reparations for the aliens that had been enslaved during the time of the Republic, including Wookiees and Ryloth and countless other aliens. So it ends just a few months after the Battle of Jakku, so there's still roughly 29 years leading up between the end of that book and The Force Awakens. And I'm really curious about why the new heroes are called the Resistance, which makes it sound like the Empire is still the primary, larger galactic force. So I don't know if the Resistance is just the name of the military branch of the New Republic, or if the counterattack was successful and the Empire now controls more of the galaxy. Personally, I kind of hope that there's been a truce / stalemate / Cold War for the last 29 years, and that new balance is threatened by this new Starkiller base, which could give the Empire the advantage. Because if you think about it, thousands of planets, trillions of sentient lives, it would be really hard to win definitively if these people are really bought in. So I hope that's what The Force Awakens does, but we'll find out in just a few short weeks. But in the meantime, go and read Lost Stars. It's a great book.